This week, April 21st to 25th, 2025, stock markets delivered a gripping saga of rebounds, tech surges, and trade policy twists. Welcome back to the Stock Pro, your trusted source for market insights. Whether you're new to investing or a seasoned trader, today's video will unpack the 5 biggest stories driving Wall Street and what they mean for your portfolio. Don't miss out. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay ahead of the market. Let's dive in. This week, the US market staged a dramatic comeback, with the S&P 500, Dow, and the Nasdaq posting impressive gains. From tech giants leading the charge to shifting trade policies easing investor fears, the action was non-stop. Whether you're just starting out in your investing journey or managing a diversified portfolio, this breakdown is designed for you. We'll cover the key events that move markets, why they matter, and how you can position yourself for what's next. So settle in, grab a pen, and let's explore the 5 defining moments of this week's market action. First up, let's talk about the market's epic comeback. The S&P 500, Dow, and Nasdaq were on fire, posting gains almost every day this week. By Friday, the S&P 500 was up 0.74%, and the Nasdaq, it climbed a solid 1.3% on Friday alone, thanks to tech giants like Nvidia and Tesla leading the charge. You may ask, why the rally? Well, investors were hyped about 2 things: easing trade tensions and some reassuring words from President Trump. Earlier this month, markets tanked when Trump announced hefty tariffs on Chinese goods, 145% to be exact. That sent the S&P 500 down 5% since his election win. But this week, Trump softened his stance, saying he's ready to be very nice in trade talks with China. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent even hinted at a possible big deal with China, which had traders breathing a sigh of relief. For new investors, here's the deal. Tariffs are like taxes on imported goods. They can make stuff more expensive, hurt company profits, and spook investors. When Trump pumped the brakes on his tariff threats, stocks bounced back hard. Experienced investors know this is a classic relief rally. Markets hate uncertainty, and any signs of clarity send prices higher. But the key question is this rally built to last? Let's talk tech, because the Nasdaq was the star of the week. Tech stocks like Tesla, Nvidia, and chipmakers led a rally that had the Nasdaq up 2.5% on Wednesday alone. Why? 2 reasons. First, corporate earnings were better than expected. With over a third of S&P 500 companies reporting, first quarter profits are up 9.7% from last year, way better than the 8% analysts predicted. Second, Trump's softer stance on tariffs helped tech companies big time. Many tech giants rely on a global supply chain, especially in China. When tariffs looked like they might ease, investors piled into tech stocks. Tesla and chip stocks like AMD were on a tear, with some calling it a tech rally that could set the stone for next week's big earnings from Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta. For new investors, tech stocks are often the market's heavy hitters, because they're tied to innovation and growth. When they rally, it lifts the whole market. For the pros, keep an eye on those earnings reports. If Apple or Microsoft underperforms, we could see some volatility. But for now, tech's got the momentum and it's looking strong. Alright, let's get into the trade drama, because it's been the market's biggest wildcard. On April 2nd, Trump slapped a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, and China hit back with 125% tariffs on US products. That sparked a brutal sell-off, with the Dow dropping 9.1% in April's first 3 weeks, its worst April since 1932. But this week the vibe shifted. Trump said he's open to deals with China, and Treasury Secretary Bessent dropped hints about negotiations moving fast. He even said the US might strike a trade deal with South Korea as early as next week. Plus, China exempted some US goods from tariffs, which sent gold prices, a safe haven asset, down 2% as investors felt less need to hide in gold. Here's the key takeaway for new investors. Trade wars mess with markets because they disrupt global chains and raise costs. When tensions ease, stocks tend to pop. For experienced traders, this is a reminder to stay nimble. Trump's been flip-flopping on tariffs, and any bad news could reverse this rally. Stay on your toes, because this trade story isn't over yet. Now, let's talk about the Federal Reserve, because it's another big player this week. Investors were freaking out last week when Trump hinted at firing Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Why? The Fed sets interest rates, which affect everything from your car loan to stock prices. If the Fed loses its independence, markets could go haywire. But on Tuesday, Trump calmed everyone down, saying he has no intention of firing Powell. That was music to Wall Street's ears, and it helped fuel Wednesday's rally. with the S&P 500 jumping 1.7%, but still investors' sentiment is shaky. A survey from the American Association of Individual Investors showed only 21.9% of investors are bullish on stocks for the next 6 months, the lowest since early April. Meanwhile, 55.6% are bearish, down from a 16-year high of 61.9% earlier this month. For beginners, this means the market's mood is fragile. When people are scared, small bits of good news can spark big rallies. For seasoned investors, this low bullishness could be a contrarian signal. Historically, when everyone's bearish, it's often a good time to buy. But with tariffs and earnings in play, proceed with caution. Let's wrap up with the week's winners and losers. On the winning side, tech stocks like Nvidia and Tesla crushed it, and industrial giant 3M jumped 8.1% after beating earnings expectations. But not everyone was popping champagne. Northrop Grumman tanked 13% this week, its worst since February, as defense stocks struggled. Intel also got hit hard, dropping 6.8% after a weak revenue forecast. Looking ahead, next week is gonna be huge. We've got earnings from the magnificent 7 tech giants, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta, plus US jobs data drops, which could sway the Fed's next moves. And let's not forget tariffs. Any tweet or headline from Trump could swing markets again. For new investors, now is a great time to learn how to read earnings reports. They're like report cards for companies that can move stock prices big time. For the pros, watch those technical levels. The S&P 500 still trying to climb out of its April slump, and analysts say it might retest its April 8th low if things go south. Alright, Stockbro family, that's the wrap for this week's market madness. From tech rallies to tariff twists, the market has been serving up opportunities and risks. If you're new, start small. Maybe dip your toes in the S&P 500 ETF to ride the market's waves. If you're experienced, keep your eyes on those tech earnings and trade headlines. Either way, stay sharp and don't let the noise shake you. What's your take on this week? Are you bullish on tech, or are you sitting on cash waiting for a dip? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to watch last week's video on screen right here. Until next time, keep stacking those gains and stay one step ahead of the market. And as always, happy investing.